Prime Minister Stewart tells the DLP's 56th annual conference Barbados isn't immune to the global economic turmoil. Barbadians march for peace. And in sports, England eyeing a whitewash against India.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Hello, good evening. I'm Lisa Broom with the Saturday, August 20th edition of the CBC Evening News. In our top story, Prime Minister Stewart is warning Barbadians about believing that the country is immune to the economic turmoil affecting other countries around the world. He addressed the issue at the opening gala and cocktail reception of the Democratic Labour Party's 56th annual conference last evening. Prime Minister Stewart says Barbados has had to survive in an environment where some of the largest economies in the world were reeling, including those of former superpowers like Britain, France, Spain and Portugal. Mr. Stewart told DLP members at the same time there are people who would try to make Barbadians believe that what's happening out there has nothing to do with what's happening here.
There is more human movement, more migration across the world today than at any other time in world history, because we are now living in a global village. And that is why here in Barbados we have to take note of the things that we do. Now you have a government that assessed all of that and determined that whatever else we decided to do, there was one issue on which we could not compromise. And that issue is continuing to make people our priority.
Prime Minister Stewart says he is pleased to be president of a party that has led the country and the region in many areas. And he pointed to legislation the DLP has championed since coming to government.
We passed that legislation, and by that simple act created a kind of, an egalitarian environment in Barbados that had never existed before. Children who used to be called bastards could now walk with their chests up and enjoy the same rights as those who were born in wedlock. And you want to hear something? One of those children is the Prime Minister of Barbados tonight.
Members of the Democratic Labour Party got down to business today, electing officers and 6 members of the General Council. Conference Chairman James Paul says they also heard a detailed presentation on the cost of living from Commerce Minister Senator Ainsley Benn, as well as reports from overseas branches of the party.
The first part of the morning was kind of light. I would say at least we had over 500-600 people coming. And it could have been more larger because the fact people just came to vote and they left. And that was our main challenge. So that is why too we had to extend it in order to facilitate those people who really would not have been able to get in earlier than they could have.
DLP General Secretary George Pilgrim says tomorrow's session starts with a prayer breakfast from 7:30 to 9:30, and the highlight will be an address from Prime Minister Stewart. Mr. Pilgrim says the conference is expected to be successful, and he's welcomed the recent addition of over 800 new members to the party.
This party held 2 induction ceremonies and welcomed all these new persons to the fold. However, not a single member over the last year has submitted a letter of resignation from this party. This rank and file has stayed the course with tides beating against this party's shoreline. You have demonstrated your loyalty to this organization. You have deposited a high amount of trust in the flag bearers of this party.
In other news now, 18 students of the Barbados Community College will be studying in Canada this new school year on scholarships provided by the Canadian government. Yesterday, the students were awarded the Emerging Leaders in the Americas program, or ELAP, and Canada CARICOM scholarships by Minister of Education Ronald Jones at a ceremony of recognition. The students will be dispersed among 4 colleges: Lambton College, Candor College, Lakeland College and St. Lawrence College. Minister Jones commended the students for their achievements and encouraged them to be proud, responsible ambassadors for Barbados.
You have to buckle down and, in fact, do your work and be, as said before, true ambassadors for Barbados. We pride ourselves on being a country in which education is uppermost, where our young people, those who want to, because there's some who don't want to, are able to get as much as you possibly can at this age from education.
Canadian High Commissioner to Barbados Ruth Archibald wished the students the best and said the scholarships provided a link between the colleges.
They're also meant to develop linkages between Canadian institutions and institutions in Barbados. And I am very delighted that those programs have been extended to the community colleges as well as our traditional role with universities.
Barbados is hoping to tap into the multi-million-dollar religious tourism market. Tourism officials are taking the first step towards achieving this by staging a gospel concert next month at the Wilde Gymnasium. The Praise in Paradise concert runs from September 9th to 11th and will be headlined by international gospel artist Dr. Bobby Jones. The Barbados Tourism Authority launched the initiative today at the Barbados Hilton Hotel in front of pastors and parishioners from across Barbados. Chairman of the BTA, David Rice, says religious tourism will be a welcomed boost to visitor arrivals.
Visitors come to our country and believe and see that we are all in the same boat and believing in the same things. They return with an issue and a vision that this is the place I want to be because I feel comfortable and I know that my vacation is going to have a very, very important impact on my life. Because we never know why people come on vacation. Some people come for relaxation, some people come for events, but some people come because they need to regain some things they've lost. And sometimes the things that you lose could be the things that we don't see, maybe more spiritual.
Minister of Tourism Richard Seeley has welcomed the move to develop the niche market.
We've already said that sun, sea and sand can't do it alone. And we often hear about health tourism. And, well, why not have tourism where people come to spiritually recoup and to get their lives back on track? Right. I think it can happen here. Yeah. And it has my complete support. I have longed for this day.
Senator Reverend Dr. David Durant said the idea of a vacation designed for religious activity is gaining momentum across the world.
Tour operators, cruise lines, travel destinations and other travel entities are entering into the religious tourism market because it's becoming a very lucrative business. Barbados must get on board with this initiative and we must not be left behind. We have a beautiful paradise here, we have a beautiful island here, we have a fairly safe island here, thank God. We have an island with great infrastructure, beautiful beaches, beautiful people, and we ought to open our doors and really tap into this very important market.
Barbadians march for peace. That story and more when the evening news returns. Despite the inclement weather, scores of Barbadians dressed in white marched for peace this morning to Heroes Square. Young and old walked from Jubilee Gardens and held placards protesting recent violent crimes, praying for the victims and families affected. Organizer of the March for Peace, Tessa Chatterton Shaw, who lost 2 relatives, including an uncle in a double murder at Salters this month, says the turnout was impressive. She says, too, the march was designed to emphasize that Barbadians don't want a country filled with crime and violence.
People have a lot of power, and I think that we all have a duty to look out for each other, to ensure that we are more neighborly towards each other. We have to be more vigilant in these times, especially as we face an economic recession, but we also need to protect what's beautiful about Barbados, what's good about Barbados, and we want to sustain that.
Monsignor Vincent Harcourt Blackett says they wanted to promote a community of peace, and he called on various groups to assist.
Institutions, especially like the school has to be a place where the dignity of the human person is promoted. And too many of our schools are failing, and some of the criminal activities are even happening in our schools, so we cannot tolerate this. And there are many families in Barbados that are dysfunctional, and we have to do something to restore the family, because without proper foundation which comes from the family, everything will totter.
Cancer and high blood pressure are two illnesses that are affecting many Barbadians. Both topics were explored last night by family physician Dr. Adrian Lord and cardiologist Dr. Alfred Sparman during a special medical program on CBC TV8. Dr. Lord says it's difficult to detect pancreatic cancer, which is only discovered long after it has spread.
You see, it's hidden behind the stomach, hidden in the middle of the abdominal cavity, behind the stomach, near to the spine. So it's not something you can feel. It's not something that you will have any symptoms of until it is large enough to cause obstruction. And it's the obstructive symptoms that cause the jaundice, the vomiting, the nausea, the weight loss as it grows. And by that time, it is usually too late.
High blood pressure is prevalent among Barbadians, and Dr. Alfred Sparman says there are dangerous consequences if it is not controlled.
Pressure itself can damage the brain, can damage the heart, can damage the kidneys, damage the legs. It affects the entire body, systemic. So it's very prudent or wise to really try to keep it down, and especially here in the Caribbean, we're extremely sensitive to salt. So if you can cut back on the salt, you can bring that pressure down. But one thing I should say, that there's one drug that is good for that type of thing, hydrochlorothiazide or diuretics. It's a first-line drug. A lot of people are taking 4 or 5 pills for blood pressure. You start off with hydrochlorothiazide, 1 tablet a day, and watch your salt. A lot of times it controls your pressure.